A little different.
Different good, I hope.
Oh, it's good. We're looking at calendars today, but not your typical kittens hanging from branches calendar.
Okay, all right. What kind of calendars then?
These are all about like nature and astrology and rhythms, helping you kind of live in sync with everything.
I'm intrigued. I do love learning new systems.
Yeah, and our source is pretty cool. It's this website for a yoga instructor, Wally. She's from Austria.
From Austria. Interesting.
And she creates and sells these calendars. They're packed with info about moon signs, elements. There's even a thing called the Venusjahr. Have you heard of that?
I haven't, no. But I'm ready to learn.
Me too. I'm already fascinated. So let's start with her calendar 2025. It looks like there are a couple of different formats to choose from.
Yeah, she has, let's see, monthly, weekly, and then there's one called the pentagram calendar.
The pentagram calendar. Okay, we have to get to that one.
For sure. But first, they all look amazing.
Yeah.
With photos of flowers, and they're color-coded too, based on the element of the day.
And that element is connected to, wait for it.
The moon sign. I was going to say the moon sign.
Oh, exactly. I was testing you. So for people who aren't familiar with moon signs, how would you explain them?
Right. So everyone knows their sun sign, right? That's the one based on your birthday. But the moon sign, that depends on like the exact time you were born. Where was the moon at that moment?
Oh, I see.
And it shows your inner self, your instincts, like how you emotionally react to stuff, not just your, overall personality.
So like if I knew my moon sign, I could kind of get a feel for how my energy might be on any given day.
Yeah, that's the idea. Some people believe if you align your activities with what the moon's energy is doing, you can like make the most of each day.
I'm starting to get why these calendars are so appealing. Okay, so let's talk about the Wochin Calendar 2025. That's the weekly one. It seems like a good place to start for people new to all this.
Definitely. It lays everything out in a really clear way, easy to understand, even if you're a total beginner.
And it's got those color codes we were talking about for each day, right? So you can quickly see if it's a fire, earth, air, or water day.
Uh-huh. Plus it's got like the full and new moon phases marked.
Yeah.
And even something called void periods. What are void periods exactly?
Yeah, what are those?
It's when the moon is making its last major aspect, like its last big move before it changes signs. It's basically taking a break, so its energy is a bit all over the place during that time.
So does that mean like don't schedule anything important during a void period, like no big meetings?
That's the traditional advice, yeah. They're not great for new projects or decisions that need, clear energy.
Makes sense.
But think of it this way. It might be a great time to do those little tasks you keep putting off. Or just, take a break yourself. Recharge a bit.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so we've talked monthly and weekly. Now let's get to the mysterious one. The pentagram calendar. It sounds intense.
It does, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's for people who are already into astrology.
Oh, okay. More advanced.
Yeah, and they mention a specific system on the website called Planet Code. Apparently, the pentagram calendar uses this system.
So planet code is like a way to understand how the planet's energies affect us.
It seems like it, yeah. The website says the pentagram calendar is really for those who already use this planet and code thing.
Interesting. So this is like next level stuff.
Right. And to make it even more intriguing, it's not just something you can buy on the website.
No.
Nope. You have to contact Wally directly to get it. Like a secret club.
That's kind of cool. Okay, so we've got these calendars, all different formats, all focused on this idea of syncing up with natural rhythms. But let's zoom out for a second, talk about the bigger picture, astrologically speaking. 2025, the year itself.
Right, because this is where the year of Venus comes in. Wally mentions it a lot on her website.
Year of Venus. It sounds kind of romantic, doesn't it? Can you break down what that actually means? Like, is everyone going to fall in love? Haha, wouldn't that be nice? No, it's not quite that simple. But in astrology, each year is connected to a ruling planet. And it's based on this ancient system, the Chaldean series.
The Chaldean series.
Yeah. It's how they figure out which planet rules which year.
So how does that work? Do they just draw straws or something?
No. It's actually pretty cool. Imagine a 7-pointed star. Each point is one of the 7 classical planets. Sun, Moon, Mars. The usual suspects.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And this Chaldean series follows a specific pattern moving around that star. So each year, a different planet gets to be in charge, so to speak.
Ah, so it's like a cosmic dance with the planets taking turns leading the way each year.
I like that, yeah. And in 2025, it's Venus's turn to shine.
So Venus is calling the shots. But what does that actually mean for us here on Earth? Like, is it going to affect our daily lives?
It's not about, like, specific events happening, but more like Venus is going to be highlighting certain themes and energies. Think love, beauty, harmony.
Oh, that sounds pretty good, like a year of good vibes.
Yeah.
Right. And traditionally, Venus is also linked to relationships and creativity.
Interesting. So maybe instead of everyone falling in love, it's more like we'll be focused on those things, like nurturing our existing relationships, being more creative, appreciating beauty.
Exactly. It's about recognizing what the year's potential is and trying to work with it. Like if you've been wanting to start a creative project but keep putting it off, maybe 2025 will be the year you finally go for it.
I love that idea. So it's not about Venus forcing things to happen, but more like it's creating an atmosphere where certain things are more likely to flourish.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
This is fascinating. We need to take a break, though. When we come back, we'll dive deeper into what this all means for you, our listeners. How can you use this information to make 2025 your best year yet? Stay tuned.
Can't wait. Welcome back, everyone.
All right, so we were talking about 2025 being the year of Venus, right?
Right. Based on that Chaldean series, the ancient system for figuring out the yearly rulers.
It's kind of wild to think about. Civilizations thousands of years ago were already tracking these planetary cycles. Like they were really paying attention to that stuff.
And it wasn't just about observing. They started to see patterns, like how certain planetary movements seemed to line up with what was happening here on Earth.
So they're seeing Venus shining bright and thinking, okay, maybe this is a good time for love and beauty to bloom.
Something like that, yeah. But how would someone actually feel Venus's influence in 2025? Good question. It's not like we'll all suddenly become poets or anything.
No walking around with rose-colored glasses.
Probably not. Think of it more like Venus is shining a spotlight on certain parts of our lives. It's amplifying specific themes, but it's not dictating what happens.
Okay, so it's not going to make everyone fall head over heels in love, but maybe it'll make us more aware of our relationships.
Right, like it might make you want to nurture those connections. Or maybe you'll be more drawn to beauty in art, nature, whatever speaks to you.
I like that. So maybe instead of Venus making us do things, it's more like it's creating an environment where certain things can thrive.
Yeah, exactly. It's like setting the stage for those Venusian themes to flourish. Say you've been thinking of taking up painting, but you just haven't gotten around to it. Maybe in 2025, that creative urge will be stronger.
You know what? I've been wanting to take a painting class forever. Maybe 2025 is the year I finally do it.
See, it could be. Or maybe it'll inspire you to finally book that trip to Italy you've been dreaming of.
Ooh, Italy. Now you're speaking my language. But it is kind of amazing, right, how these big cosmic ideas can actually have pretty down-to-earth effects on our lives.
It is. It's all about connecting those dots.
Yeah.
Seeing how the cosmic and the personal intersect.
And these calendars we've been talking about, they seem to be all about bridging that gap. Like they bring those ancient astrological ideas right into our everyday routines.
Exactly. The way Wally weaves in the moon signs, the elements, even those void periods.
Yeah.
It really encourages you to think about this stuff on a daily basis, not just in the abstract.
Speaking of void periods, we talked about how they might not be the best time to start big projects or make major decisions. But what if, like, you have to have a meeting during a void period? Something important comes up. How do you balance that practical stuff with these astrological insights?
A good question. And it shows how this is more about using the information as a guide, not a set of strict rules.
Right.
So you have a meeting during a void period. Doesn't mean it's doomed. But maybe double check everything. Be prepared if things get delayed or go a little off track. And instead of pushing for a specific outcome, focus on building those relationships. Be adaptable.
So basically, be aware of the energy and work with it as best you can.
Exactly. It's like having a little extra insight, a heads up. And who knows, maybe that meeting will actually be super productive because you were more in tune with those subtle energies.
No, that's a thought. It really makes you wonder, what if planning your whole year with these astrological influences in mind could lead to a more fulfilling experience overall?
Right. It's an interesting idea. Even if someone's not a full-on astrology believer, we can all agree we're connected to these natural rhythms, whether we realize it or not.
I mean, we know the moon affects the tides, right? And there's more and more research about how it impacts sleep and even people's moods. So whether you come at it from a spiritual angle or a scientific one, this idea of aligning with natural rhythms just makes sense.
And it's logical. We are part of nature after all. Why wouldn't those cycles influence us on some level?
It's almost like we've been missing half the picture, haven't we? Stuck on clocks and calendars, but forgetting about those rhythms of the natural world.
And that's where Wally's calendars come in. They're like a reminder. We're not just cogs in a machine. We're part of something bigger.
I love that. It's about reclaiming that connection. Instead of rushing through our days, we can actually pay attention to those shifts in energy, maybe even plan our activities around them.
Imagine scheduling your week not just by meetings and appointments, but by moon phases and void periods too. Ancient wisdom meets modern life hacking.
That's a great way to put it. And, you don't have to be an astrology expert to benefit from any of this. You can just start by noticing the moon phases or see if you feel different when the moon's in a certain sign.
Exactly. Find what clicks for you. It's all a journey of self-discovery.
Speaking of journeys, before we wrap up our deep dive into Wally's world, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on. The way she explains the Chaldean series and those year rulers, it's really clear even if you don't know much about astrology.
It is. She even goes into the history of it, like how ancient cultures figured it all out.
It really shows you that astrology, at its heart, is about connecting to something bigger. We're all part of this grand cosmic dance, and these calendars, they're kind of like our invitation to join in.
Beautifully said. Instead of feeling like time is controlling us, we can learn to move with it, flow with it, and maybe even use it to our advantage.
Okay, I'm sold. I need to get one of these calendars. But before we go on a shopping spree, let's take a minute to think about what we've learned.
We've covered moon signs, those mysterious void periods, and even got a glimpse of what a Venus-ruled year might hold. But the main takeaway, I think, there's a whole other side to time that we've been ignoring.
Like, we've been looking at time in this super narrow way, just the straight line, the minutes and hours. What if we opened up our view, saw time as something cyclical, rhythmic, even magical?
It does open up a whole world of possibilities.
It does. But before we get too carried away, we should probably take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore how all of this applies to you, our listener. How can you use this knowledge to make 2025 your best year yet? Don't go anywhere. Okay, so we've explored Wally's calendars and all this fascinating stuff about moon signs, Venus years. It's a lot to take in. But how does it actually apply to you, our listener? How can you use this in your own life?
That's the fun part, right? It's about taking these concepts and seeing what clicks for you.
It's not about following every astrological rule out there. It's about being more in tune with those natural rhythms, maybe finding a bit more intention in your day-to-day. Like, imagine this. Instead of just going through the motions, you actually check in with the energy of the day.
Right, so if your moon sign is in, say, a fire sign, that's all about action, getting things done. Maybe that's when you tackle that big project you've been putting off.
And then when the moon shifts to a water sign, which is more introspective, you use that time to reflect, recharge, do some journaling, brainstorm.
You're working with the energy, not against it.
Like having a secret advantage.
And it's not just about being productive. It's about feeling more balanced, more in alignment with yourself. Maybe you'll start to see patterns in your own moods that connect to the moon's phases.
You know what? I've always felt more energized during a full moon. Makes total sense now.
There you go. That's what's so cool about it. It starts to feel personal, not just some abstract idea.
So I want to ask our listeners, would you consider using these kinds of calendars? What stands out to you about this approach to time and planning?
Yeah, what sparks your curiosity? Is it the idea of working with the moon's energy? Or maybe it's about getting to know yourself better.
Maybe it's just about being open to a different way of looking at time, one that recognizes how connected we are to the natural world.
Whatever it is, remember, it's a journey. Start small, see what resonates, and go from there.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm really struck by this idea. Even in this digital age, we're still so connected to those natural cycles.
Absolutely.
And maybe by paying attention to them, taking a cue from the moon and the stars, we can bring a little more harmony into our lives.
Couldn't agree more.
If you're intrigued by all this, definitely check out Wally's website. She's got tons of info about these concepts and, of course, those gorgeous calendars.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep looking up at the stars.
We'll see you next time.